Hey, everyone, and welcome to the Mark Prater podcast, where our aim is to connect our global family of churches with our executive director. Mark, those who watched the podcast, read the podcast last week, know that you were going to leadership team retreat this week. In fact, you just got back yesterday from that retreat. You shared with us a number of exciting developments that you guys were going to be praying over, planning into. How did the retreat go?
The retreat was just outstanding. In fact, I was talking with Jeff Percival yesterday at the airport before we flew back to our respective cities, and he said, and I agree with him, that it was probably one of our best retreats from a strategic standpoint, and from being able to have a depth of conversation on some of the strategic items that we discussed. But I think for everyone, it's just good for us to remember why the leadership team exists. The leadership team exists because it was put into our book of church order when it was ratified back in April of 2013. And the purpose of the leadership team is to serve our pastors and our churches, and to hopefully do all of that by the grace of God, but for the glory of God. And so one expression of that during the retreat is we actually just went through the list of churches in Sovereign Grace and prayed for every church by name, and prayed for the pastors in each of the churches. That really set our heart in the right place. A reminder for us that we're not only dependent upon God, but we exist as a team to serve our churches. And then that was just a heartbeat that we carried into all of our discussions. And we had really good strategic discussion. Last week, I think I mentioned in the podcast that we were going to discuss, and we did discuss, a global expansion plan that, should God allow us to continue to grow, what would it look like for us to be potentially a multi-generational, global, a small denomination? And there's a number of ways to have that conversation. One of them, where I sort of started the conversation, was to just think philosophically about it. What is it that we're aiming for? And obviously, we're aiming for a family of churches united in our mission to advance the gospel of Jesus Christ. But within that, what we're seeking to build is our self-sustaining churches and ecclesiastical nations that also enjoy a vibrant interdependency. And what we're not quite there yet. And what that really means is that as we expand globally, there's going to be a bit of a dependency upon the churches in the United States, not just financial resources, but people resources and time, et cetera. And we want to serve our brothers and churches throughout the world in that way, but we don't want to create an over dependency upon the churches in the United States. So what we're really aiming for philosophically is a family of churches that are self-sufficient on the local level, that are also interdependent in partnership together. So that was just a wonderful conversation that we had. Another one that we just sort of ventured into, actually I led us into, and I did this with a little bit of trepidation, is right now we are responding to the opportunities that God is giving us, wonderful opportunities to partner with churches throughout the world. But should we also not just react, but have some sort of proactive approach as well? And as we talk through that, we just thought there could be a time and a place where we want to call Sovereign Grace churches to pray for a church plant in a strategic city where we don't have a church yet, because we know that city will be influential and lead to the planting of other churches, either in that nation or that part of the world. Now, we're not going to have a map with a bunch of pins on it saying these are the cities we're going to. We really want to be led by the Spirit of God. But for example, if we want to continue to have just a presence in Asia, Singapore would be a great place to plant a church, and inspiring folks to consider praying that way. And as we pray, who knows who might be stirred and says, I want to go to Singapore and plant a Sovereign Grace church there. So that was a wonderful conversation for us to have, as well as many, many others. I'm just so pleased with how the retreat went.
That's excellent. Well, it sounds like God answered the prayers of many of us who were praying for your retreat. And thank you for praying for our churches. Very grateful for that prayer. You talk about a number of issues, things that have to do with global possibilities and projects. But you guys also talked about things happening here in the States, including you're working on planning the pastors conference coming up here essentially next month, end of next month. Tell us about that.
It's coming fast, Ben. It's coming fast. So we did spend some time planning, with more additional planning for the pastors conference. By the way, our registration has already exceeded the registration we had for last year. And Dave Taylor tells us that there's more folks from outside the States who plan to register yet. They haven't done so either because of trying to work out travel or because they're waiting on visas if they do get those. So we're going to have a big group of folks, I think a globally diverse group of folks at our conference this year. And we just can't wait for this conference. So we just took time and went through each of the main sessions, made some adjustments in message themes. And as a reminder, I think I mentioned this before, we're celebrating 40 years of God's grace at this conference. Yes. And one of the things that we are known for, I believe, or want to be known for, is preaching Christ and Him crucified. Mm. So CJ is going to open our conference on Tuesday night, preaching on the power of the cross. Yes. And I can't wait for that main session. But each of the main sessions have specific themes and ways that we want to equip and care for our pastors and wives. We work through the breakout sessions again. We have some creative ways that we want to celebrate our 40-year anniversary. And by the way, speaking of that, here's what we want to do in celebrating 40 years. We want to focus on God Himself.
Good.
We want to focus on gratefulness to God for how He has been faithful to us for over 40 years. And in particular, how He has been faithful to lead us into a gospel centrality. So those are some of the themes that we worked with and coming up with creative ideas to celebrate 40 years. And I just can't wait for the conference. And by the way, that starts on November 1st. The day before is our Council of Elders meeting. Right. That's on October 31st. We did some planning for that as well. And I think that is going to be just a wonderful meeting in many, many ways. So just some of the things we talked about this week.
Wonderful. Can't wait for the conference. So grateful for you men and the way that you seek to serve and care for our churches through intentional planning. The pastors conference coming up that we'll get to experience soon. So thank you, Mark, for taking the time to work on that along with the rest of the leadership team. Thank you, everyone, for watching or reading. We'll see you here, Lord willing, next week. Bye for now.
Thank you for watching. If you have questions or comments, Mark would love to hear from you. For more videos like this, hit subscribe on YouTube or by email at markkprater.com.